just for SUTV, not for you to be able to hear me better. This event that we're here for tonight is called the 3-Minute Blitz. It's not that you have to be blitzed in 3 minutes. If you do, that's your, private business. But it started at the University of Queensland in Australia. And they were trying to get students to conserve water by taking a 3-minute shower. And so they got this idea, well, what else could you do in 3 minutes? Well, again, that's probably your private business, but you also might be able to explain your research project in 3 minutes. And so this great idea was born for this 3-Minute Blitz. And the event tonight is sponsored by the Office of Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity, co-directed by me. I'm Chrys Egan and Jessica Clark. And we're really excited for you to come out and have some fun with research tonight. So I'm going to introduce our esteemed judges and explain a little bit about what we'll be doing. There's also going to be an Audience Choice Award. So the judges will pick a first, second, and third place, and they will get prizes that are gift cards to the bookstore, since we couldn't hand you cash. But the audience will pick somebody they didn't pick as their choice, and we'll do that just by yelling and screaming the loudest, and that person will get a special prize. Yeah, so go ahead and practice, right, the yelling and screaming. So our judges tonight include our Delegate Carl Anderton. And so when we say our delegate, he literally is our delegate over the area of Salisbury University. Yes. So if you're at the stadium and you appreciate the nice turf grass, say thank you, Carl. We also have Julia Glanz, who's our city administrator. And so I don't know if you would agree, the city administrator is sort of the person who does what we think the mayor does, right? So she's running the city, right? She's getting everything happening on time. Our other esteemed judges include Kevin Lindsay, who is our Director of Neighborhood Relations. So among other things, he knocks on your door to ask how you're enjoying your neighborhood. They're out cooking hot dogs. Yay! And Grace Murdock, the Secretary of Kindness. And so you'll see on the back of her jacket, it says, Why Comico Grows Kindness, her nonprofit. And she's happy to tell you about all the fabulous things, but I believe we're declared the first kindness city.
We will be this fall.
All right. So thank you to the judges. We're going to turn it over to Eleanor to tell you about the rules and get us started. Oh, Jessica, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the rules are no more than 3 static PowerPoint slides with no electronic media, no additional props. Competitors exceeding 3 minutes will be stopped. Presentations are spoken word. The decisions of the judges are final. You guys wield so much power. And lastly, have fun.
And speak loud, because the microphone is just for the TV. Alrighty, so we have 7 great presenters. They're representing every school on campus, and we have, I believe, sophomore through seniors here presenting projects that they've worked on maybe just this semester or for a long period of time. We ask that we have complete silence while they're presenting so we can listen. Try not to distract, minimize the flash photography or anything like that. The presenters will have a clicker that they can use. Dr. Clark is doing the timing, so you'll be able to see how close you are to your timing. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so each time I'll come up and talk about the presenter to give the judges some time to get everything together. But our first presenter is Harrison Lyon. He is a junior here at Salisbury, and his title is Social Media Disorder and Social Interaction Anxiety, a closer look at that relationship.
So just by a show of hands, can I see how many people use social media? Okay, now, keep those hands up if you think about how social media impacts your daily lives on a regular basis. You think about that? All right, well, that's fantastic because that's the very motivation of my study. Social media impacts over 1 billion people's lives. However, it's relatively understudied. So that kind of leads to the fact that we misunderstand how social media impacts society. So my name's Harrison Lyon, and I'm going to examine the relationship between social media disorder and social interaction anxiety. So far, the literature shows that general social media use is positively correlated with symptoms of depression, stress, and anxiety. Several other factors of social media use have been studied as well with similar effects. Those are frequency of use, patterns of use, and media multitasking. For the purpose of this study, I'm going to focus on a particular pattern of use. That's social media disorder. So far, the literature for social media disorder is limited. However, the results are powerful. They show that social media disorder is very strongly linked to increased levels of anxiety. Hence, the purpose of my study will add to this literature because I'm going to be focusing on a particular type of anxiety, social interaction anxiety. How I'm going to be doing that? I'm going to be using cross-logged panel correlation. What I'm going to be doing during the first wave of data collection in September, I'm going to administer 50 surveys. I'm going to collect data from students at SU. I'm going to be looking at a social media disorder scale and a social interaction anxiety scale, and I'm going to be determining whether there's a correlation between those two factors. Then months later, in November, I'm going to be administering that same survey to those same 50 students. I'm going to be determining from that second wave of data whether the findings from the first wave were reliable. And then from there, I can use some of this data and this data to determine whether there is causality between the factors, to determine whether social media disorder actually leads to these increased levels of social interaction anxiety. And so what this is going to do for policy, it's going to inform policymakers. They're going to be able to make educated decisions about how to restrict social media use, how to govern it. For research, it's going to widen the scope of social media research. And then for the health industry, it's going to aid them in addressing the consequences of social media use. So thank you for your time. Hope you have a good one. Well, what brought me here was my affinities with the OURCA office. So I work with Dr. Egan and Dr. Clark with Laraday, and I work with Zach as well, who's also their GA with Laraday. But then I'm working with Dr. Egan this summer with Youth Innovation Academy, but we've had a lot of time together, and I felt when they put this opportunity out there, I kind of had to go. I mean, free pizza, who could pass that up? So, yeah.
Alrighty, our next presenter is Lauren DeLong, a senior at SU. Her project title is Even Your Immune Cells Hate Heavy Metal, the Genetics, Epigenetics, and More.
Hi everybody, my name's Lauren DeLong, and I'm here to tell you that even your immune cells hate heavy metal. Now, your immune cells are the ones that take care of you when you get injured or might get an infection. And specifically, I'm talking about macrophages. These are the ones that engulf or eat foreign invaders like bacteria. And these macrophages can also secrete signals, which we call cytokines. And these help to recruit other macrophages and other cells to help to fight the infection. Now, when I talk about heavy metals, I'm not talking about the music. I'm talking about the heavy metal elements. Specifically, I'm researching arsenic, the one in the middle. Now, arsenic occurs naturally in our environment, but in very small levels. But depending on how you get your water or what man-made pollutants are around, you might increase your exposure to arsenic. So I looked at different environmentally relevant levels of arsenic exposed to macrophages, and I found that at 300 nanomolar arsenic, these macrophages could no longer secrete the same amount of cytokines they normally would to fight an infection. Not only that, but the gene responsible for making these cytokines was not being read by the cell anymore. So a gene is like the directions to make the cytokine or some other functional product in the cell. So the question is, what about the arsenic exposure is not letting these cells read the gene to make the cytokine anymore? Now, we all know that we look like our biological mothers and fathers, but there have been two hypotheses for why that is. One hypothesis suggested, referring to giraffes, that maybe they have long necks because over their lifetime they stretched out their necks and passed on those stretched out necks to their children. Another one suggested that only giraffes with long necks could survive and pass on those genes to their children, and the ones with short necks died. We at first thought only the second one was correct and discredited the first hypothesis. But now there are studies showing that sometimes traits we acquire over our lifetime can actually be passed on to our children. This is called epigenetics, and it works for our cells too. So we think that the macrophages being exposed to the arsenic are no longer able to read this gene to make the cytokine, and then when they divide to have daughter cells, these daughter cells can also not read the gene to make the cytokine, although they had never been exposed to arsenic before. We hope that the results of our study will help to inform public policy around environmental health and also improve arsenic exposure policy. Thank you. I think it went well. I was practicing a lot, so I think it went pretty smoothly. I just thought it would be a lot of fun. I heard about it, and it sounded like a really exciting event. My roommate is actually the one that planned it, too, so I really wanted to support her as well.
All right. Our next presenter is Emily Fisk. She is a junior here at SU. Her title is Opioid Use in Maryland.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily Fiskus. So what I'm talking about is going to be the opioid epidemic within Maryland specifically. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you know what opioids are. This could include heroin, it includes fentanyl, it could be synthetic or non-synthetic drugs. A lot of the times we're seeing it more in like benzodiazepine and oxycodone use. So we're going to be talking about that. As you can see, these are actually the total opioid deaths in Maryland by area from the years 2007 to 2017. So as you can see over on the right, the total opioid related deaths for the Baltimore metro area are way higher than every other area in Maryland. Specifically over here, we have the Eastern Shore, which is kind of like a middle ground, but we're still seeing a significant increase over the years. So from 2007 to 2017, it's steadily rising. That's kind of a big issue. As you can see, clearly, we need to do something about that. So the research that I'm going to be doing is looking at the actual prescribing patterns of providers to see how they're prescribing their opioids to their residents. Next, this is specifically prescription opioid deaths in Maryland. As you can see, so the split graph over here, the top line starts at about like 180-ish. That's the Baltimore metro area. It is still significantly higher than everywhere else. It is the strongest and most significant increase out of all the different areas. As you can see, the Northwest, the National Capital, and the Southern area, they're all pretty significant and have moderate significant strengths whenever it comes to this correlation from the year. So as the year goes on, it increases in the amount of deaths. The Eastern Shore actually is the only area in prescription opioids that are not increasing. That's actually really good, especially because we're on the Eastern Shore. So the deaths, that's really good for us. We're actually going down compared to everywhere else, which is going up. That's super, super important, and I hope to see how these prescribing patterns match these data. And that'll be really important to see what exactly is going on with our prescribers, and hopefully I'll be able to see whether or not we need to make some reforms in our actual system. So thank you.
That's under.
I think it went pretty well. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. I'm not a fan of public speaking, but I think it went pretty well. I'm part of the psychology department, and this is for my thesis. This was just one of the steps towards that. So we were just like, let's see how it goes the first round and see how it keeps going. So yeah.
Alrighty. So our next presenter is Cameron Kane, a junior here at SU. His project is titled Leveraging Deep Learning to Create New Accessibility Features.
Alrighty, good afternoon everybody. I'm an undergraduate research fellow in computer science at Salisbury and founder of Valkyrie Software Solutions, where I'm aiming to develop the highest quality accessibility solutions at the lowest cost. So, to kind of describe our problem, the deaf hard of hearing community is left behind in video games because they don't have access to directional audio. Things like footsteps and gunshots allow you to act as an early hint system to be able to fight your enemies and be able to be prepared for those engagements. So, some statistics on what kind of impact this will have. The Able Gamers charity has done some statistics, and 3 out of 5 adults end up using accessibility features. So things like key remapping and a feature like this just enhance the quality of life of games, so people beyond just the deaf hard of hearing community will use them. So that comes out to about 90 million gamers in the US that's totally addressable, and then you have 11 million users that end up reporting some difficulty with hearing, and that's going to affect their ability to figure out where a sound origin is. Our target market is going to be the deaf and hard of hearing community, and that's about 500,000 gamers in the U.S. It's way more than it's definitely enough for a small business, but not enough for something like EA to kind of sidestep and kind of try to address 0.5% of their market. So, in terms of what I've actually been able to do in my research thus far, these are some of the kind of GUI or the user interface designs we've come up with. I was able to work with a digital art student. And so as you can see, like in this one's my favorite because you've got 4 squads left and you're hiding in a building. So the only way you're going to be able to figure out where your enemies are is with hearing. So you can see that the indicators are telling you there's a footstep from the back and a gunshot to the right. So that means 2 teams are fighting that way. There's only 1 team you don't know where they are. So something like this is going to be very impactful for somebody's gaming experience. So in terms of my research, I've been using deep learning. And it's kind of one of those solutions that makes more problems for you. Because deep learning is like a baby, but even worse. Babies can kind of apply assumptions to, across like a bunch of different experiences. Computers need you to lay as many of those experiences out as possible. So in order to kind of accomplish that and not being someone like Google that can kind of amass a massive amount of data, I've been able to generate it myself. This is a scene in Blender. Blender is a 3D animation tool used by a lot of developers. And I've been able to create this scene where you have the different speakers around the edge, and I can script this and basically create a long instruction set for a computer to say, hey, I have this amount of sounds that can possibly happen in the video game. Play it in every way possible around in this area so I can have all the experiences that could possibly happen in this game. So that way my model will understand exactly what it's looking for. So that was really great. It was very interesting to be able to kind of turn those to the correct angle to get those to appear correctly. But and so that's that piece. The other thing about the accessibility industry is that a lot of different games use different engines. So just like the EPA sets standards for emission standards, every manufacturer has to come up to that same standard. There's no line or regulation for that for video games. So accessibility features are developed by each individual corporation, and a lot of times they're not done very well or at all. So something like this will allow me to train it for different games using different audio input, and
That's it.
yeah. It was a little rough. I hadn't practiced it before, so my structure was a little falling apart. But I hit all the points I really wanted to hit. I'm an undergraduate research fellow, and they really wanted a little more show in the event. So I came out, and I really came for like kind of the networking possibility to be able to run into different people who were interested in the project. And I was able to give about a couple business cards today. So successful in that way.
Our next presenter is Austin Dobbs. He's a 5th-year student here at SU. His project is Atomic Glow Sticks Accidentally Making Carbon Quantum dots with metallic acid. I'm not a science major. Here you go.
Hi everyone, so my name is Austin. I'm about to present to you my research over the past 2 semesters on quantum dots. So, what the heck are quantum dots? Quantum dots are tiny nanocrystals that tend to function like individual atoms. They can be made from all kinds of typically terrible materials, such as cadmium, lead, or arsenic, or a combination of the 3 if you really want to work in a dangerous lab. And they're also made in very flammable solvents. They have a lot of roles in futuristic solar cells that can replace the modern solar cells that are silicon. Their specialty is that they, instead of just absorbing one kind of light, the color of light that they absorb, perhaps from the sun, is dependent on their size. So being able to control the size of them is really important. What's extra fun about them is that you can tell what size they are by the exact color that they are. So here I have in solution a little bit of quantum dots that are blue. Those are typically smaller quantum dots. You make them in a solution and you put them in the microwave. Not a kitchen microwave, although you can do that. And they wind up of any range of size, and you can pick the size that they are. However, because they're typically dangerous, we're trying to make ones that aren't as dangerous from copper, indium, and sulfur. So, these are over here, the cadmium quantum dots, the dangerous ones. They're just stunning and gorgeous and perfect. These ones over here are our quantum dots, the ones that we've made in our lab. They are red, yellow, and orange. They are not a full range of colors, and the full range of colors is what we are shooting for. Now, we have a synthesis over here. Right here, this is what we do in the lab to make these. However, I'm a clumsy new student, and I showed up one day and just totally forgot to add the sulfur to the whole solution. So how are you supposed to make copper indium sulfide quantum dots without sulfur? That's like trying to make cake without flour. Well, we went through, we put it in the microwave, and actually, it turned out that we wound up making quantum dots. And in fact, they were a kind of quantum dot that we hadn't made before. They were blue. Now, blue is the most energetic kind of light. And that's really exciting because it means if we put these on a solar cell, you can be absorbing the most energetic kind of light. And in addition, we already know how to make 3 colors, so now we have 4 colors that we can make. That's really exciting. We weren't sure that we actually made them. So we sent them to the University of Maryland and got photos taken. And these photos were a little telling of what they are. These, believe it or not, are actual quantum dots. They're nano-sized. They're about 2 nanometers across. And you can see just barely in this corner a dark spot. Those are a bunch of atoms arranging into a quantum dot. And what you can tell from that picture is that they're not made from the heavy materials we thought they were. In fact, they're not copper indium sulfide at all. They are made of carbon. One of the problems with carbon is it is so easy to make these quantum dots that we made them entirely by accident. And that was what my research turned out to be. So I work for the Office of Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities, and they helped sponsor and put together this whole event. One of my coworkers, Eleanor Brown, put it all together. And so, you know, I came to support, but I mostly came because I really like my research and I really wanted to show more people it, and I figured that I would be up for the challenge of compressing it to 3 minutes. Yeah.
Alrighty, we have Anthony Lebar here. He is a graduate student, and his project is Do Management Practices Affect Soil Health of an Urban Forest? A case study of Salisbury University's Arboretum.
Hello, everyone. So, in the face of rapid urbanization and population increases, it's important to find ways to mitigate negative influences imposed by human activity. So you start to think about these ways, and what's a great way to do this? How do we start this? And a great way is to promote urban forests. So we're going to promote the growth and health of green spaces within urban environments, say like Salisbury, the city. So studies have indicated that not only do urban forests enhance social health, they help to mitigate carbon emissions, clean up pollution, and provide habitats for wildlife which otherwise would be destroyed by these negative influences of human activity. However, so all of these benefits that we reap from urban forestry can be classified as ecosystem services. So ecosystem services, though, are inextricably correlated with the health of soils, and that is the focus of my research. So these are just some historical pictures of how Salisbury University has dramatically changed over the year due to urbanization. So this is in the 1920s, 1950s, 70s, 80s. And what I'm trying to see is if management practices are having an effect on these soil fungal and bacterial communities, also along with physical and chemical properties. And this is going to be an indicator of soil health. This is Salisbury now. As you can see, there's tons of roads and growth and people and big buildings everywhere. But in the face of this urbanization, Salisbury University has done a beautiful job of creating this gorgeous, bustling campus with over 150 tree species. So we're using Salisbury University as a model to either commend or come up with ways that we can enhance our sustainability to enhance things like urban planning and things like that for a better future and a better tomorrow. So these are just some of my acknowledgments. My doctors that I work under, undergraduate researchers, and the Salisbury University Green Fund is funding my project. And for those of you who don't know what the Salisbury University Green Fund is, it's an on-campus organization that strives to enhance the sustainability of our operations. So with that, I thank you. It was a little hard to consolidate all my research into 3 minutes, make it concise and succinct, but I think it went pretty well. It was fun. It was a good challenge. I saw an advertisement and I thought it would be really nice to communicate with some people actually that are a part of the community and can actually make some legislative decisions and things like that, and just getting some free pizza, get some brews and stuff. I think it's a good time overall.
All right, our final presenter is Kerry Lynch. She's a junior here at SU. Her project is Influence of Short-Term Explosive Training on Peak Power.
So some of you guys may remember in about July of last year, the news covered the death of University of Maryland's offensive lineman Jordan McNair. Unfortunately, there have been many similar cases of collegiate football players who have died during preseason and off-season training practices.
These training practices often consist of extreme physiological workloads that are not specific to the player's position nor the player's sport. These practices also tend to take place in extreme weather conditions, putting the players at a high risk for heat-related deaths. The purpose of these practices is to help condition and prepare the athletes for their upcoming season. So these practices put the players at a high risk for death, and we are looking at to see how we can help avoid these unneeded deaths through proper conditioning and training. So this led us to design an exercise protocol for evaluating the influence of extremely intense exercise training on their conditioning levels. So we did a pre-exercise testing to see their conditioning level, and we used that to determine it through their cardiovascular fitness, their muscular strength, and a conditioning test as well. We had them complete 4 training sessions over the course of 2 weeks, and these training sessions included cycling sprints for both leg and arm cycles, as well as explosive lifting for the squat and the bench press exercises. Overall, we saw an increased peak power for both the squat and the bench press exercises. We also saw an adaptation of maintenance of power throughout the 4 training sessions for the bench press. However, we saw less significant improvements for the, we saw the improvements for the squat, but we saw less significant improvements for the bench press exercise. This led us to believe that it might take longer than 2 weeks to properly condition the upper body for maintenance of power. Overall, we also saw an increase in the conditioning test scores after the training sessions. Overall, this shows that intense sprint interval conditioning, such as that needed for American college football, can help to dramatically increase their power output, and this suggests that preseason conditioning months in advance may not be as necessary as we previously believed.
And Dr. Egan will be the deciders for who the people's choice are, based on whoever's the loudest for each candidate. All right? I think Clark and Egan will be great, right? Yes. No yelling. Clark and Egan are not allowed to yell for anyone. All right, you're going to start with Austin Dobbs. Kerry Lynch. Harrison Lyon. Anthony Lebar. Lauren DeLong. Emily Fisk. And Cameron Kane.
And the winner of this fabulous gift bag is Kerry.
Congratulations, Kerry. All right, competitors going to stay up here. We're going to announce the judges' choice for awards. In third place, we have Austin Dobbs. And he is winning a $25 gift card to the bookstore. In second place, we have Emily Fiskus. Who is winning a $50 gift card to the bookstore. And in first place, we have Harrison Lyon, who is winning a $100 gift card to the bookstore. Stay right here. We would like to have the judges come stand up for us. Thank you so much for judging the competition. We really appreciate you guys being here. As a huge thank you, the Office of Undergraduate Research, as well as a couple other departments on campus, have provided you all with a goodie bag as a thank you. And we'd like to do a big group photo with all of our competitors, the judges, Dr. Clark and Dr. Egan. And thank you so much to everybody for coming.
was really cool. I mean, seeing some of these phenomenal ideas. You know, you learn about quantum dots, you know, and you're learning about gaming solutions for people who are hard of hearing, and the opioid epidemic. So it was amazing seeing the way these students have progressed in formulating their plans and their ideas for us. I mean, it was awesome.
It was really fun. I didn't quite know what to expect just by reading the emails and the flyer, but we've got some super smart students here, and makes me feel a little inadequate, but it gives me a lot of hope for the future.
It was different, you know. Some stuff I comprehended a little bit easier than others, but it was fun, you know. Being around my judges, I know the judges that I hang out with, but it was a good time.
I did enjoy being the judge. I learned a lot today. It's very difficult because they were all very good with their content, and I would think the only reason they got a little mixed up maybe because of all the noise and the extra stimulus that was going on, but they were all very good and they knew their stuff. I really liked it.